everyone. For the next 45 1 hour, we'll talk about the vProtect. My name is Paweł Mączka. I'm a CDO of the Storware company. With me together today is Marcin. Marcin?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Just say anything. You are live? Do you have a good weather? Anything?
Weather is not so good, but anyway, it's fine.
Okay. In Warsaw, Poland today, it's really beautiful. We have more than 20 degrees. So how about you? We have a lots of people. So just give me a sign on chat that you are in a good mood. You can wave. You can interrupt us. Team, today the subject that we would like to go with is the vProtect, the enterprise-grade backup and recovery for the Nutanix AVH Acropolis. So we are quite excited because we pushed Nutanix. We've been working with Nutanix for the last year to provide this kind of the functionality. Marcin will go later on with the details. Was an easy job because from one side, it's quite easy because there is an API, but of course, there have been many pitfalls and problems during. Today, we can easily say that we have a really good product that help our existing customers and future customers to provide modern data protection for the existing Nutanix hyperconverged infrastructure. So we will divide the session into the two parts. I will start with a few slides explaining the basic of the vProtect. Then the next part will be doing by Marcin Kubacki. So Marcin will do the live demo. We will take the Q&A in the end of the session. So you can also ask a question on the chat. So feel free, do not hesitate to ask us during the presentation, but please do it with a chat. Most of the Q&A we'll do in the end. Marcin, would you like to add something before we'll move on?
Well, not at this point.
Okay. So, team, just briefly about the Storware company. We are on the market since 2013, and our goal is to mainly building the simplified data protection in the two major areas that we are specializing. So we're talking about the mobility part and the open hypervisor part. Because today's session is dedicated to Nutanix and to the vProtect, we of course will be concentrate on the open virtualization platforms. And the few major areas where we are stand for, of course, we are the team who are only focused on the data protection. We do also building, because we are the vendor, we also building a worldwide channel market with the distribution with the other partners. So if you are right now connected and listen us from the different part of the world, we have a quite huge amount of the partners that can help you locally to providing you a POC, to providing you help, all the distributions. If you would like to get the specific information about on which country where you can how you could purchase and how you get the trial, please contact us and we'll provide this information. Today we are talking about the Nutanix, and the Nutanix in our vision is one of the open hypervisors players, because the Acropolis based on the KVM is the open source platforms. So for us, the open virtualization is the everything actually that is everything besides the Hyper-V and the VMware. So if you will go to the Gartner quadrant from the 2 years ago, everybody of course knows and everybody cares about the Microsoft and the Hyper-V from the data protection perspective. But we've noticed that there is a huge demand right now from the existing market that the KVM-based hypervisors, such as Red Hat virtualization, such as Nutanix Acropolis, is right now growing massively. So we have a more and more demanding from our customers and partners to provide a really good data protection for the others. And for your information, vProtect is not only about the Nutanix. The vProtect is today supporting more than the 6 platforms based on the KVM hypervisor, but also based on the Zen server and the Zen hypervisors. So vProtect, the major goal for the vProtect is to provide end-to-end VM backup and recovery, replication, and disaster recovery capabilities for this kind of the hypervisors. So today we'll concentrate on the Nutanix Acropolis. So also we'll mention a lot about the KVM-based hypervisors. And you need to be aware that if your customers, or if you right now do not using Nutanix, be aware that more and more customers worldwide is right now building an additional project based of the different hypervisors than the Hyper-V and the VMware. This is the key, is the differentiator. People, customers, projects are looking for the new types of the hypervisors, looking for the better TCO, and the KVM-based hypervisors can give this answers. So, from the trend perspective, from the trends perspective, we need to go into a little bit deeper into the architecture. So today on the left, you can see the different kinds of the hypervisors that we support today. In the middle, you can see the vProtect server, which can be, Martin will tell you a little bit more, which can be associated with the vProtect node. Next slide will be explain the differences between the server and the node. There are the different roles. And on the right, you can see a huge amount of the different backup destinations. We call it freedom of choice. So we are today the only vendor on the market that provides the two-way how we can solve and answers the data protection needs from our customers. So we can say that vProtect can work in two different modes. We can be fully independent backup software. So we can store our data on the file system, on the data domain, on the OpenDDo file system, on the iSCSI target, on the NFS targets. So anything that we can attach to our existing operating system. We can also store directly data in a cloud with the OpenStack Swift connector and the AWS S3. We are also certified in a cloud object storage from the IBM. We have implementation with the scalability. So everything that using S3 in the end, we can easily support. And the last part, you will see the IBM Spectrum Protect, Dell EMC Networker, and the Veritas Netbackup. This is a little bit different story because this is a different mode. We call it a proxy mode, that the vProtect can actually be a data mover, media server. It depends how the vendor will call us, but we will get and take the backups from the left to this specific enterprise backup providers that we call it. So the good news is that we can go on the customer side we can attract the existing implementation based on the IBM, the EMC, on the Veritas. We don't need to build the additional island. We can easily expand their capabilities with the vProtect as a media server, or we can start a project as a fully independent backup system. So there is lots of advantage in this approach, because in the end, it's not that we decided, but our end user is decided which method will be better for them from the functionality point of view, from the scalability point of view, and single workflow point of view. Marcin, would you like to add anything to the slide?
Not at this point.
Okay, but for sure you will say something on the next one. So, like I said before, we divided vProtect role into the two different parts. So you have a vProtect node right now here in the middle, and you can also have a vProtect server on the right. So the differences is actually the node, it will directly communicate with the hypervisor, with the bunch of the hypervisor. It can be Nutanix, KVM, Red Hat Virtualization, any of the hypervisor that we're supporting today. And the node will be the data mover, so the node will be connect directly to the specific backup destination. So you can imagine that in this slide, every node can be attached to the different backup destinations, such as cloud, such as IBM, Spectrum Protect, or the local file system. And the vProtect server itself is the major manager that is give all of the scheduling, all of the configuration, but also the vProtect server has a catalog, database catalog, that stores all of the necessary metadata information and about all of the backups that's stored on a different backup destinations.
Pavel,
yes?
I guess it's very important to add at this point, because this question comes quite often. Node is the piece of the software component that actually does the whole integration. So it communicates with the virtual environments and it communicates with backup destinations. vProtect server, on the other side, the only role that it actually has is to store metadata and act as the central point for management. So in general, when you are deploying vProtect, you have two RPMs, or you can have, let's say, OVA images, but let's focus on the RPMs. You have two RPMs, one for server and the other one is for node, and you can have multiple nodes installed. This picture shows some drives. This is actually about the staging space. To be more accurate, staging space is one of the very key aspects of this solution because it's required for many different scenarios, and it actually doesn't need to be local, okay? In this picture it is, but it's not a requirement to be local. And backup destinations actually are not shown in here in this picture, but those obviously can be either local storage or it can be some remote storage, etc., etc. So those that has been actually mentioned in the previous slide can be assumed as the backup destination. Those backup destinations can be shared among those nodes. So in the node configuration, you basically are able to point which nodes will be able to access specific backup destination. This gives you many different options actually to support very tricky setups, descriptions of your infrastructure, how your infrastructure actually relates to each other. Because you can have a common TSM server somewhere, you can have a replicated file system, and so on and so on. So those in vProtect you are able actually to describe it in more detail. Go on, Pavel.
Important is also to add that we create, because we started with the single node architecture, so we couldn't scale up. And we have a few projects, bigger projects, that customers, let's imagine that you have more than 400 hypervisors that we would like to protect. Let's imagine that we have 100 Nutanix servers that we would like to handle all of the workloads. So we can today we have two options to scale. We can scale up. We can add additional resources to each node, but on one node, or we can scale out. We can put many different nodes in many different localization. We can attach node to specific number of the hypervisor on the left. So this architecture giving us extraordinary scalability and the options to work in a disparate environments. If we have many of the branches, geolocalizations parts, replication parts. So giving us a huge amount of the scenarios that we can implement the vProtect itself. I can see the question, can we handle short-term and long-term retention backups, including DBs? Every backup destinations that we attach to a specific node can be built based on the policy. So you can say that I can store daily backup on the local file system, on the AWS or whatever, with a specific number of the version and specific number of time that we would like to store. So this is the first thing. Including DBS, database backup, today we're talking about the fully agentless architecture. So it means that depends on the Nutanix, we are in a good position, because if we'll use the tools, we can easily queue us and have a consistent backup, even from the database point of view. But to be honest, we will go into the pre and post schedule features in the next release, when we can easily knock down to the specific VM, says, okay, I will talk directly via the script with the database. I will shut it down or put into the archive mode before I will do the official API snapshot and taking the snapshot to the vProtect. So this is the two ways how we can handle, how we'll have an option to handle the database backups. Let's also take a scenario with one of the our favorite technology partners. So let's take the IBM Spectrum Protect. So in this case, the vProtect can work as a separate VM. So let's imagine that our node and the server will be on a VM side, but also can be installed on the Spectrum Protect server itself. But in the Nutanix, we don't have a choice, it must be VM. Martin, correct me if I'm wrong. So vProtect will be on a VM, communicate the Nutanix or the KVM ref this scenario, take the data to the temporary stage, and then move the data via the native API to the specific Spectrum Protect node. It means
to be more accurate, this picture actually shows both vProtect server and node installed together, okay? So the staging is one of the aspects of the node itself. Whether the node is installed externally or internally in the infrastructure that is being backed up is actually hypervisor specific. And even more, we provide two ways of backup ref currently. One is export storage domain approach. This is the old one, and this doesn't actually require anything to be installed on the ref itself. The other one is the new version. It's actually using VM proxy approach with the disk attachment feature, and this is actually the same is actually for Nutanix. This requires vProtect node to be installed on the cluster, on the ref cluster, on the Nutanix cluster, and that is actually quite different from what was in the past. Nevertheless, it's still agentless.
Okay, we have a question, Martin. What are the use cases when we need the IBM Spectrum Protect EMC Networker on Veritas Netbackup? So from the database perspective, to be honest, we have two choices. It's quite straightforward. You can install the dedicated agents like TDP for databases or any dedicated agents for the specific enterprise backup provider that we're working with. Or you will wait for our features, a pre-post schedule that we can attach a dedicated script for the dedicated database. Then it's actually fully transparent from the backup targets. So it doesn't matter if it will be IBM Netbackup or the cloud or local, because we'll get the consistent state of the VM with the database during a snapshot.
Actually, it's worth to mention here that for Nutanix, for the Citrix and Ref, all of those platforms support sort of the application consistent quiet snapshot, or they call it option to freeze file systems. So depending on the actual hypervisor platform, and we support that. You can enable that in the VM details. but it requires some additional tooling. This is actually a good option, especially well for Nutanix application consistent backup, to quiesce your DB before being snapshotted. So it's actually it depends on the hypervisor mechanism. And in the future, we want to provide additional option to have our own mechanism to have pre-snapshot and post-snapshot execution of specific commands. That would actually allow you to quiesce DB and unquiesce it regardless of the platform that is actually installed in your environment.
Mm-hmm. Here you have a simple example how, because we have customers who actually would like to embrace the possibility to store the data only in the cloud. So all of the data is offloaded directly to the AWS or the OpenStack Swift. So you can imagine that you have different scenarios. So I will mention two. So vProtect has the capability that store latest backup locally. It means that everything will be stored in AWS, for example, on OpenStack, in your MSP or whatever, when you will choose the one of the backup destination in your local cloud or Amazon cloud or Google Cloud. But the latest copy, it will be always on your local repository. And it means that in case of data restoration, you will always get the data from your local file system. And we have a scenario that customers use in this scenario also, but this is the talk about the future. We planning to move that. We don't want to just store data off-premise in the cloud, but we would like to take the advantage of reuse this data for option to restore the data directly in the cloud. But it's not as simple like the typical OVA format, like in the other hypervisors such as Hyper-V and VMware. But the Nutanix giving us a really good shot to working with this functionality to have a restoration option directly into the cloud. So keep in mind that we will move into this specific area. So not only for the offloading the data. Okay, so Marcin, could you go a little bit in the details how actually Nutanix architecture it's working with the vProtect, and what is the advantage of this kind of the architecture that we choose? Because we have a different option with the Nutanix team, but we chose this one.
Okay, so a few words. Previously, I have said that there is vProtect server managing multiple nodes. So in this picture, you are able to see 3 clusters with Nutanix AHV hypervisors. Those clusters need to host vProtect node VM. Okay, so a small VM with the node with the staging space installed. vProtect server can be installed anywhere. It is just, well, it communicates over REST API, so it doesn't really need to be on the same cluster, and it manages all of those nodes. Now, the thing is here that, well, during the scan, obviously vProtect detects on each Nutanix cluster which VM is actually the vProtect node. So you don't have to actually type any numbers, it will just automatically detect vProtect node. There are two actually, well, Nutanix actually provides 2 ways of backup their VMs. Well, one approach is to use the disk attachment feature. So vProtect node asks Prism to connect specific drives, dumps the data. It also supports change region tracking to just skip the to just back up the blocks that have changed. And obviously it attaches the drives and it pushes to the either third-party backup provider, it can be cloud, it can be file system, whatever you like, okay? The other approach is to use volume groups and mounting them via iSCSI. And this approach actually may have some disadvantages as far as the licensing is concerned, because, well, Nutanix said that it may require additional licenses in the future. So that was the first thing that we have actually thought that may be a problem in the future. And the other thing is that obviously it's iSCSI, it's not local. So everything that needs actually to traverse over the network itself. So we thought that actually because of those two disadvantages, we have chosen the disk attachment approach that is currently implemented in the vProtect server. Okay, management is fine. Another thing is you can have more nodes than just one per cluster. You may want to do that just to boost up or split the work among two nodes inside specific cluster. Some of the blocks in this sort of, actually I forgot the proper word, but it's in the storage in the Nutanix actually spans across multiple hypervisors. So it's sometimes better to have local node which copies data from the same hypervisor as the VM that resides on the same hypervisor is, instead of copying data from the other hypervisor. So you may want to add more nodes, but it's actually doesn't influence anything related to the licensing itself. And finally, obviously, the storage. What are the targets? Obviously, it can be locally on the nodes. It can be remote file system. It can be some Gluster-FS, let's say, to be replicated among all of those nodes. Some object storage or third-party enterprise-grade backup provider like ISP, EMC, etc., etc. Okay, Pavel, go on.
So of course, the most important part is that we'll introduce in a second. When you see the live demo, it's quite straightforward. So of course, for us, important is to introduce the CRT. So it's their own CBT change block tracking. So after the full backup, we just gather in the change block, and we can easily do an incremental forever approach. Also, we did our best. That's why I said when we started the presentation, it took us too long because we've been waiting for the proper API. So we using the all of the best. So we know that other vendors, even if they right now saying that they support it in a Nutanix way, they in most cases uses the older API approach. I don't want to say right now the specific names of the competition, but we already tested so that there are the differences from the speed of backup, from the CDP perspective, and from the easy of use. Also, what is important, we already certified a month ago in a Nutanix, so we are today Acropolis hypervisor integrated ready. In a few weeks, we will be also on an official website on the Nutanix. And the news from yesterday, if you will, Martin, maybe you could give a link to this white paper. Yesterday, Nutanix put us in the data protection for Acropolis hypervisors. So this is official white paper with the vendors that is only supported via Nutanix. And we've been added yesterday in the latest release on this document. So please take a note of it. If you will just Google data protection or AHV, or Martin just send the link, you will find the PDF, and you will get also the information that we've been certified. We are in one of the 5 vendors that today supporting the Acropolis hypervisor worldwide. So we are glad to be on top with the other biggest players. Also, you will see in the live demo how we gather the application consistent backups, how we can exclude the certain VM disks, and what's the difference between our solution and the other vendors that a little bit put you and give you not as many choices from the backup destination, as we do today. We are the only vendor who's supporting so massive different options to start Nutanix backup. And what we always emphasize and saying, the VM auto grouping and scheduling is really, really easy. And this is one of our advantage with the RESTful API. So we can, all of the processes that you will see during the demo, you can automate, you can fully hidden vProtect in your data centers and automate with the RESTful API approach. We always, when we're doing it with Martin, the presentation, we explain you these 3 easy steps: indexing, group and scheduling, and backup restore if you need it, of course. So Martin will show you in a few minutes how it's work. UI, we're using the AngularJS, so it's modern, it's easy, it's fast. So you will see that you don't need to do a PhD from how to use the vProtect. We just counting that you need at least 5-10 minutes to go through all of the different features that you can attract and use it right away. And also what we love and what's when we have most of really good feedback from our existing customers, is the task console. So every task you're using, you can just you can task hidden or open, so you see everything that we're working right now. So all of the tasks will be visible, all of the states, logs, etc. You will see in a few minutes. Also, we concentrated on the Nutanix today, but just keep in mind that 2 weeks ago we released the version 3.4 called Mars. And we do also invest in lots of our attention into the Red Hat and the Orbit environments. And it's just a really sweet spot because we see that there is a huge market here and the many customers is struggling with choosing the really good modern data protection. We right now introduce the latest API. We have a choice. We can work with 2 different modes. But I think, Martin, it's a separate topic. I just wanted to say that the KVM-based data protection, you will be hard to find any other vendors that is supporting so wide range of the different KVM-based installation hypervisors. Just where to look for the differences between us and the other vendors. The wide range of the hypervisors in the backup destination. This is what I said before. Different modes that we can work. And RESTful API, which is really important if we're talking about the bigger implementation where the customers would like to use, for example, Cloud Forms or any other automation tools to provision in the backups, but do not using the typical backup dashboard. So RESTful API, this is what we will see on a live demo. Everything from the UI you can do via the automation with the REST. We do love our backup monsters. So if you also tracking us of the different kinds of the social media, in most cases we do love in promoting our products via the social media. We are really active, especially on LinkedIn. So if you do not follow today our backup monster, just go on the LinkedIn, find the Storware company, just give the follow, will be appreciated. We have right now around 550 followers. We have the ambition to have 1,000 this year. We see that our partners and our customers is watching us, giving us the feedbacks every day that we're working with them. So if you right now have an internet access, you need it. You need to have it, unless you won't contact it to us via the Zoom. Just go on LinkedIn, follow us. We will be appreciated. You will see lots of good news, lots of updates, lots of next webinars via the social media. Okay, Martin. So I will give you right now, or you just can take the share screen.
Hold on.
Myself, we are certified in most of our vendors. So please feel free to contact us via the Twitter, via the LinkedIn, or just send us the email on info@storware.eu. And we have also Marek, who is sitting in Czech. He's a worldwide leader for the vProtect. So keep in mind that the Marek will be the major contact that if you will be interested about to listen more about the technology, Marek will be one of us who will be contact you as in an ASAP mode. Okay, Martin.
Okay, Pavel, you need actually to unshare right now, and let me share the screen. Okay. Okay, I guess now you should see my screen. A brief overview actually of what is here. Let me maybe hide this one. Okay, it's better. The environment that we're actually looking at consists of single Nutanix cluster. So we want to actually to log into it. Hold on a second. This Nutanix consists of 3 hosts, and there is a single vProtect server and vProtect node installed as a single VM. Hold on, I will copy the password because this one gets a little bit tricky. So let me log into the Prism. And typically the installation would look exactly the same as usual. So we will have a vProtect node installed somewhere. In our case, we have actually vProtect server here also. So one of the VMs should basically be CentOS with the installed vProtect server. And here it is. It has also the staging space, okay? So this is the UI that actually is served by the vProtect server installed in there. And the first step, obviously, well, the installation itself requires you to register a node, okay? So I have one node running. I can have multiple of those. I have one node configuration assigned already. And those 3 steps approach typically look like this. You need to add hypervisor manager. In this case, our Prism, which is here, it hosts API also. So you need to add credentials and initiate scan. This index task, because every action in vProtect is actually a task, some sort of the task. This index task gets information about the available hypervisors, storage clusters, well, it is single cluster in Nutanix case, and available VMs, which is the most important piece of this information. So you can see that I see storage and clusters available on my Nutanix. Now, in the virtual machine tabs, you should see all of the VMs available in the environment. This index operation can be obviously initiated on demand, like I did just right now, or it is also being done periodically by the vProtect itself. So you don't have to manually execute it every time. It will detect if some VMs have disappeared, so you will see that those are now no longer present. So step number 1. Step number 2, well, we have actually connected the local file system as our backup destination, but you can actually set up more of those. Well, Amazon S3 or any other type of backup destination you would like to set up. And now I'm able to back up my VM. So let's initiate some full backup of this virtual machine. I can select, well, only one backup destination in this case, and initiate backup task. Backup itself consists of two steps. So there is an export phase. This export task basically collects data from the hypervisor and puts it in the staging space. This process obviously it's done completely differently for each of our supported hypervisor platforms, especially that for Nutanix it actually does all of those disk attachment processes. So right now it has connected to the drive, it dumps all of the data to the specific location, and then it will execute store task, which basically is the, well, in our case, it's file system. So technically, this is two-step process. So export plus store step. Let's give it a few seconds. So the export task basically well, you can monitor the progress obviously here from the console. You can also check the log files for all of the details in the as far as the export is concerned. In the meantime, let's actually have a short walk around what I can see more in here. So those are details of the backups that I have actually done previously. There are a few backups already. Some of them obviously, well, all of them actually are successful. One is in progress still. There are some snapshots history. Snapshots are being left for incremental backup. So if you have full plus incremental, well, quite common situation, right? Then the full backup, if there is at least one incremental schedule configured for the VM, you can actually check that here. I have at least one. That means that the snapshot will be left there for future purposes, for future incremental backups. Well, this is important because you need to actually have some base snapshot from which all of the differences are being taken as far as the change block or change region tracking is concerned. So I can actually refresh this one because the backup has already succeeded. I can see that here in my console. The store operation was very, very fast. That's one thing that I will tell you a bit in a moment. But let's focus on here. So the snapshots actually are the information about what snapshots are visible to the vProtect. This actually helps vProtect also to keep track of, in case you have actually executed or created your own snapshot. This is required for vProtect to keep track where is the last point of successfully stored backup so that increments are being done properly. You can also exclude drives. If you have, I have only one drive, so that wouldn't make sense for this to back up this VM. But you can have more drives in your Nutanix VMs, and you can exclude some of those, so that the VM backups will obviously may not dump all of the unnecessary data that you don't want to back up. Let me go back here to the list. And I have mentioned previously that this store operation was much faster than it actually typically would take. This is because our local file system, the backup destination, actually resides on the same file system as our staging. If vProtect detects such situation, it actually doesn't have to copy those data again to the target directory because it's already there. It just needs to move the files to the different directory. That is why the store operation in this case, obviously it's always being shown, but it takes, well, let's say 0 seconds. So that was the backup process. Now, because I have incremental support, I have incremental schedule, I can execute incremental backups. So the incremental should take much less time. And this is because obviously we are using change region tracking feature served by the Nutanix itself. Oh, I have hidden that. Well, that was much faster. I see that export has already been finished and store is awaiting, and it's completed also. Now, maybe let's do some research. Actually, you can see that the last backup was 42 bytes because nothing has changed, and there is also last full backup information for you to know what in general is the size of the backups of those VMs. Well, maybe let's restore something now. So I can restore VM, well, obviously to file system, but it's not really useful. I guess the most useful feature for Nutanix is the restore to hypervisor manager. Restore to file system is only if you want to have raw data to be accessed to in some specific location. And restore to hypervisor manager is, I guess, the most useful for Nutanix environments. I need to actually choose which container you would like to have your VM to be deployed to, and just click restore. Now, I have selected actually the last backup. Last backup was incremental. If it is not necessary to merge any data, like for full backup, the restore process would actually take, again, 0 seconds, and it would just put data, it would try to transfer data to the Nutanix itself. However, because we are using incremental as our, let's say, we're restoring incremental backup, we need to have some copy in the staging space to which the increment will be, where the increment will be merged together with the full. So that is why it may obviously take much more time. File system is the only backup destination currently that supports random access in our case. But that gives you also a lot of flexibility as far as the mount operation also and restore operation is concerned, because in general, if it's only possible, we are able to grab the data instantly without having to copy all of those to the staging, because it's already there, right? So the restore phase has completed, the data is in the staging, it has been merged, and then import task is being executed. Import task puts data and creates VM here. So we can see that another Storware test VM has appeared just right now. The import is actually being finished right now, and it is done. So you can see that another test VM has been deployed on the Nutanix cluster. So the backup and restore successfully completed. One more thing, obviously, mounting option. So you want sometimes to mount backup just to grab specific files from the backup. You don't want to restore it to the environment. You don't want to boot the virtual machine. You may just want to have those files accessible on your node. So now let's invoke the restore and mount task. Obviously, well, restore starts again. This time, well, again, it is incremental backup that requires merge. So it will take a few seconds. And then mount operation is being executed. So now actually we can, it can be actually shown in here. It's already there or not? Let me check. Oh, come on. No, it's not this one, it's the previous one. So let's wait a moment. And and it's this one, okay? So it's the appropriate timestamp according to the time zone that is in this particular location. So now I'm able to browse through those files and grab those that are needed. Let's say that I want to go to the var log messages, for instance, right? This one looks more like our time right now, so around 4 p.m. or something. So that actually is how we are doing backups. How do we restore backups manually, and how do we mount them? But it's quite common, obviously, that you don't want to back up those VMs manually. So the first step when you want to set up your periodic backups is to actually create a group of VMs. So I have one group in here, and let's discuss what options do you have for a group. First of all, groups obviously are the way you are joining VMs, set of VMs, and schedules. So when do you want to have your backups to be executed? However, you don't want sometimes to add those VMs or remove them manually. So for every platform, actually, we support the automatic assignment or removal based on names, okay? Regular regex-based rule. This allows you to define rules like if the VM is like backup something, or let's say whatever that important customer com, okay, that will include the group into the include VM into this group. Exclude rules obviously are parsed before include rules. That's one thing. For Nutanix, unfortunately, there is no tags support yet. At least the tags that are in the Nutanix environments are not used for the same purposes as tags in ref environments or Citrix that we support. So for now, we don't include those security I guess related tags. Nevertheless, you are still able to form regular expressions to add or remove VMs according to your needs. Now, this auto-assignment feature obviously can be disabled, like it's by default, but it can work in two modes. It can be assign only, so I want this group to add, and again add some VMs, but don't remove any VMs that are already in there. You sometimes want to have ability to add more VMs based on specific name, but you also want to manage partially manually such groups. And there is assign and remove option that actually allows vProtect to remove VMs if they don't match the rules anymore. Like you have removed, for instance, a tag or the name has changed. It will be removed because some exclude rule or it just doesn't match the include rule anymore. So this is the way you are actually able to automate the process of assignment. And you don't have to click here in the vProtect, you just assign tags, or you just have a specific naming convention on your current Prism or your, let's say, ref environment or any other. And this allows you later just to log into vProtect, and not too often in this case, and check, verify if those have been applied successfully or not. Now, vProtect group means also backup destination. So where do you want to store your backups? You can have multiple groups. They don't have to be of the same type. They can be mixed. But you need to say, I want those set of VMs to be backed up according to those schedules to this backup destination, single one, okay? Backup destination itself is actually a backup provider set of settings related to backup provider, plus retention settings. So how many versions do you want for full and incremental? How many days you want to keep your backups for full or incremental? So those are set in there. Now, once you have assigned VMs, you are able to give priority. Priorities in vProtect, obviously they inform node which tasks should be executed first. So you can have more important VMs and less important VMs scheduled at the same time, but the tasks in the queue will be executed according to the, or from the highest priority to the lowest one. You also are able to invoke your backup right now if you're given priority. And if it has a higher priority than the other tasks in the queue, obviously this one will be executed within the next slot available, according to the limits that you want to have applied, like number of simultaneous backups, store operations, export operations, etc., etc. So those can also be executed separately. The thing about the queue management in the vProtect, there is also one more thing. So if you have multiple hypervisors, vProtect always tries to balance tasks execution. So it doesn't want to overwhelm a single hypervisor with the transferring or sometimes even more resource-consuming operations such as cloning behind the scenes. Even snapshot can be sometimes quite resource-intensive. vProtect tries to spread, if only it is if only it is possible, like the backup priorities are the same, he will try to execute those tasks with the as many hypervisors as possible. So in this case, it will spread jobs across multiple hypervisors, and this will allow you not to stress too much a single hypervisor. So depending on your setup, well, in Nutanix, it's a little bit more easy situation because those clusters are free up to 4 hosts. But well, for larger environments, especially with standalone servers, such workload balancing is very, very helpful. One of the features that you may also want to use, this is optional, option that, well, sometimes you have a large group of VMs or backup destination that is quite likely to fail because of any reasons. You just don't want to back up, let's say, rest of the VMs if already a certain amount of tasks have failed. For instance, if the 10% of this group has failed during the task, or 20% of the VMs have failed during the store operation, like let's say I have 100 VMs, 20 of those have already failed, maybe there is no need to try with the rest of them, like with the 80. So that's one of the mechanisms, just not to fire another task if it's not worthy in this case. So once you have set up the group, well, obviously you need to set up schedules, because I have already those two, but you may need actually to define them. I have defined 2 schedules. Schedules, well, obviously group can have multiple schedules, and schedule by definition is a specific hour with a given start time window. And, well, days of week, maybe sometimes it's more complex, like this days of weeks, only first Monday of February if you need. So this gives you options to define not only weekly, but let's say more complex schedules, like twice per month, for instance, if you would like. Start at this time, and it gives 60 minutes for the task to reside in the queue, to wait in the queue. This is, let's say, time when the task is still being allowed to be executed. So from 6 p.m. up to 7 p.m., according to these settings, this task will be able to be executed. if it is not being executed because you don't have enough threads, other backups are being processed, or you're storing backups too slow, so those tasks sometimes will waiting in the queue too long, etc., etc. So your limits basically don't allow task to be executed for any reason. The task will be obviously marked as failed, the backup will fail. This is just to prevent situation where your backups are being obviously executed all the time. So if the task succeeds to be started within this time range, it is later allowed to continue and to store successfully backups eventually.
Thank you, Martin. Just a small sense of humor. I forgot to say, Martin, how much time he has. So it means infinity. I think we can go deeper and deeper, but we move the major features such as indexing, architecture, how to backup, how to restore, and how to automate and schedules. We also show different backup destination cases. I think Martin, because I don't want to, everybody is running out of time, so I think we can easily start the Q&A session.
Sure. Please unmute yourself before speaking, because everyone is muted right now. Okay, actually we have a question on the chat: how to recover vProtect server. Actually, let's show one thing. I hope I'm able to show it right now here. In our doc, there is a simple answer to your question. vProtect manual 3.x.
You always want to go in advanced mode. Just a straightforward. vProtect it has its own catalog, so you just need to protect the database. So you can use the native dumping for the we're using the MariaDB. We can replicate the VM. We can work in active passive mode. We can use the DRBD to replicate. So many features to give us allows us to restore the catalog in a different location.
The key answer to your question is that you only need to protect MariaDB. So nodes themselves, they don't hold any sort of configuration. Well, unless you have something custom, or it is something related to your backup providers, such as IBM Spectrum Protect. But in general, it's stateless. So if you are able to reinstall vProtect server, restore the database backup, you need to have backup of your database, obviously, and obviously replace some backup provider specific files if you actually have them. You may not even have them. Just start server, you can install fresh nodes, register them again, and everything is back. So simple commands basically should be able to restore your data in the future.
The next question is, okay, if we have everything stored in the cloud, yes, of course, we need this database stored somewhere, and we have a backup. We just need the simplest way. You have a full disaster recovery. So you just need to install the new CentOS or RHEL, install the RPMs, restore the database, and you can easily restore all of the backups from the S3. Or just also schedule to send the daily backup of the database every hour, for example, in Chrome or any other tools, also to S3. So then you have a simple procedure how to get the disaster recovery. No worries. Any other questions? You can ask via the microphone. You can send the info on a chat. You prefer the better way?
One more thing, actually S3 is not always about cloud. I haven't mentioned that, but S3 also is quite popular among the storage vendors. So you sometimes want to use Scality, for instance, or IBM Object Storage. And S3, our S3 connector, well, there is Amazon S3 in the backups in the backup destinations to be chosen, but in general, the same connector can be used for local installations, including Scality, for instance.
Okay. So we're waiting. We'll wait 2 other minutes for the additional questions. If you won't have. Okay, so I think we're done. We got all of the QAs. So I would like to personally thank you for your time to spending with us, with me and Marcin. We are, like I said, and when we started the presentation, we are really excited about the Nutanix support. We see a huge movement and lots of questions about vProtect with the Nutanix, also with the other hypervisors such as Ref, and KVMs, and Citrix. So again, appreciate your time. Stay in touch. Contact us, like I said, via every social media channel. We're really active on LinkedIn, Twitter. You can also send us the direct emails. So see you next time. Next hour. You remember, Martin, what is the next subject of our webinar? To be honest, I think the Red Hat.
Yeah, I also think that that's related to Red Hat, but that's coming soon.
So we will do again, I think. Unfortunately, again So it's starting to get boring. We'll find and maybe somebody else from the company. No worries. So give us a feedback if you liked us on the link. Again, thank you for your time. Have a great day, evening, and stay in touch.
Okay, thank you then.
Thank you. Bye-bye.